And we still continue with news, this time with regional news from the Gaza Civil Defense Agency that said Saturday that an overnight Israeli strike on the Khan Yunis refugee camp killed at least 19 people, including 3 babies not yet a year old. The health ministry in Gaza said that at least 2,326 people have been killed since Israel resumed its campaign in Gaza, bringing the overall death toll since the war broke out to 52,418. We have the details. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said Saturday that an overnight Israeli strike on the Khan Yunis refugee camp killed at least 11 people, including 3 babies up to a year old. On Friday, the Civil Defense Agency said Israeli strikes killed at least 42 people across the war-ravaged territory, which has been under a total Israeli blockade since March the 2nd. Israel resumed its military campaign in the Gaza Strip on March 18th after the collapse of a ceasefire that had largely halted the fighting. A civil defense official said 9 people were killed when an Israeli air in central Gaza. Officials added another 6 people were killed in a strike targeting the Al-Masri family home in the northern city of Beit Lahia. Civil Defense Agency reported a strike in Gaza City on a community kitchen that also claimed the lives of 6 more people. The agency said across the Gaza Strip at least 21 other deaths were reported in similar attacks. Health Ministry in Hamas-run Gaza said earlier that at least 2,326 people had been killed since Israel resumed its campaign in Gaza, bringing the overall death toll since the war broke out to 52,418 people. Israel halted aid deliveries to Gaza on March 2nd, days before the collapse of the ceasefire, which had come into effect on January 19th. The United Nations has repeatedly warned of the scale of the humanitarian catastrophe on the ground, with famine again looming. International Committee of the Red Cross said the humanitarian response in Gaza was on the verge of total collapse. The United States, Israel and representatives of a new international foundation are close to an agreement on how to resume the delivery of humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza without it being controlled by Hamas, citing 2 officials and 1 U.S. source. And still with our news, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, concluded public hearing into what Israel's obligations are regarding allowing the UN agencies and other relief groups to work in the Palestinian territory it occupies. We have more details in this report. The top United Nations Court wraps a week of hearings on what Israel must do to ensure desperately needed humanitarian aid reaches Palestinians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Last year, the UN General Assembly asked the International Court of Justice to give an advisory opinion on Israel's legal obligations after the country effectively banned the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the main provider of aid to Gaza, from operating. The hearings are taking place as the humanitarian aid system in Gaza is nearing collapse and ceasefire efforts remain deadlocked. Israel has blocked the entry of food, fuel, medicine and other humanitarian supplies since March the 2nd. It renewed its bombardment on March 18th, breaking a ceasefire and seizing large parts of the territory. The hearings focused on provision of aid to the Palestinians, but the UN Court's 15 judges could use their advisory opinion to give legal guidance on the powers of the world body. The resolution, sponsored by Norway, seeks the International Criminal Justice's guidance on obligations of Israel in relation to the presence and activities of the UN to ensure and facilitate unhindered provision of urgently needed supplies essential to the survival of the Palestinian civilian population. In separate proceedings last year, the court issued an unprecedented and sweeping condemnation of Israel's rule over the occupied Palestinian territories, finding Israel's presence unlawful and calling for it to end. The ICJ said Israel had no right to sovereignty in territories, was violating international laws against acquiring territory by force, and was impeding Palestinians' right to self-determination. Welcome back. Now we are delighted to have with us on the telephone Mr. Ramzy Khoury, our guest, the Jordanian journalist. Mr. Ramzy, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Angie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramzy, for your time this afternoon. And we just had reports from the Gaza Civil Agency saying Saturday that an overnight Israeli strike on Khan Yunis refugee camp has killed at least 11 people, including 3 babies, which are not even a year old. And we're seeing continuous reports of the continued attacks by the Israeli occupation force on the Gaza Strip, making the number up to 42 people across the war-ravaged territory. How do you see this continued escalation, regardless of the absolute dire situation on the ground, Mr. Ramzy?
The attacks are continuous, as you said, but
yes.
Netanyahu and his cabinet declared yesterday that they are expanding the military operations in Gaza, and they are calling for extra reserve troops to serve in other areas in order for the main military to be able to conduct its operations in Gaza in the future. So basically what we are talking about is a continuation of these attacks, a continuation of the killings. The numbers of civilians who have been killed is around 2,500 people so far.
Yes.
Since the last ceasefire. But what is very dangerous, Angie,
yes,
is the fact that Gaza has already gone into starvation. And this continuation of war and the expansion of military operations in Gaza is going to be devastating to the civilian population because we are already in starvation. I mean, if we look at the numbers that are registered by UNICEF, not just the ones that are being declared by the local authority, but UNICEF says that last month they had 2,000 children registered as severe malnutrition. Severe malnutrition means that they could die of hunger and dehydration anytime. Last month it was 2,000, but this month it's 4,000. So it doubled in 1 month. The number of children who are in severe malnutrition have doubled in 1 month. So if this continues the war continues and no food is allowed into Gaza, then what we are going to see, we're going to see this number double. So next month it would be 8,000. And these are the children alone. It's a very, very dangerous situation. Obviously, there are adults who are suffering from malnutrition.
yes.
UNICEF has 1,000 pregnant women who are suffering from severe malnutrition. So the mother and child are both in danger,
risk.
and they could die because of that.
Yes.
So we are. This is basically the ultimate crisis that the Gazans are facing.
Absolutely.
Since the 7th of October, a year and a half ago.
Now, Mr. Ramzy, as you said, the United Nations has also repeatedly warned of the scale of the humanitarian catastrophe on the ground, saying that famine again is looming. The International Committee of the Red Cross also said that Gaza was on the verge of total collapse. Meanwhile, we've seen the U.S., Israel and representatives of the new international foundation saying that they're close to an agreement on how to resume delivery of humanitarian aid to the Palestinians in Gaza without it being controlled by Hamas. How do you see this recent announcement, and what is this new international foundation comprised of?
The Israelis are procrastinating and they're playing games. It doesn't take anything. The food and the medics are distributed by agencies.
Yes.
And by NGOs. They are not distributed by Hamas. So all of these are excuses that are ridiculous excuses.
Indeed.
The food and the medications have to enter Gaza immediately. Otherwise, we are going to see many civilians die. And you're talking in the thousands. We are going to see people die out of starvation. And it's ridiculous. Making statements doesn't make a difference anymore. We all know that Israel does not care. Israel's reputation is already destroyed. They don't care. So making statements and taking positions doesn't make a difference. What needs to be done is Israel has to be threatened that certain action will be taken if food and medications do not enter Gaza. And immediately. We cannot wait. Every day we are going to see more and more people die. So far, 57 children have died out of starvation. And now we are going into real starvation, a very heavy mode of starvation. This is where Gaza has reached right now. And the 57 who died, including the children that you mentioned, Gaza hadn't already started to reach this point where it is today. So if it doesn't happen immediately, then we should start expecting thousands of children dying, and not just children, women and children as well, women and men as well, who are also starving. But children have very low immunity.
Yes.
We have spread of disease, so it's not just food, it's medication that has to come in because there is a lot of disease. Many of these of the children have severe diarrhea, and this causes dehydration, and dehydration kills. Children die out of dehydration, and therefore, if we don't tackle the diseases that are spreading in Gaza today because of lack of water, lack of food, lack of cleanliness, lack of medication, then we are going to start seeing numbers that are horrifying. And this is the first time that this number of children have been killed in any war. This is the first time that we have a daily rate of children dying. You know, since the start of war, according to UNICEF, 27.9 children have died on a daily basis.
Yes.
This has never happened anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
This number is going to become much higher if children start dying of starvation and dehydration.
Indeed, Mr. Ramzy. And now we've seen recently the International Court of Justice just concluding a public hearing into what the Israeli obligations are regarding allowing the UN agencies and other relief groups to work in the Palestinian territory that it occupies. How do you see the top UN court wrapping up the week of hearings on what Israel has to do and what it recommends it do with regards to ensuring humanitarian aid reaching the Palestinians? Do they have any judiciary power?
No, they don't, because this advisory goes to the UN. It should be tackled by the UN Security Council, where we all are awaiting an American veto, as usual. And unless the Security Council actually takes action, usually sanctions, punitive measures that are taken against the country that is breaking international law, unless that happens, then Israel doesn't care. And Israel knows that it is committing all of these war crimes on purpose, and they are declaring it. They're not hiding it. They're not trying to defend it. They're declaring it. When the cabinet comes out and says no food is allowed into Gaza, or they say that we are going to continue the war is mostly against civilians. Israel has killed hundreds of doctors, hundreds of so that journalists, they're attacking the infrastructure that would allow the Gazans to continue living. So they are trying to destroy all means of life in order to make it impossible for Gazans to continue living. But the Israelis are not hiding that they are using starvation as a weapon. which is a major crime. So there will be an advisory statement that is coming out of the court. This will damage Israel's reputation that's already damaged, if you like. Is the UN Security Council going to be able to pass any punitive measures against Israel that would force Israel to stop what it is doing? There is major doubt there, because the Americans are expected to go ahead and hit any attempt like that with a veto.
Mr. Ramzy, that this resolution, which is sponsored by Norway, is seeking that the ICJ issue guidance, as you said, or an advisory on obligations of Israel in relation to the presence and activities of the United Nations. Could this lead to anything being done with regards to the presence of humanitarian aid organizations?
Again, we are faced with impunity. Israel enjoys impunity. Why? Because the United States of America has decided to continue to offer Israel that kind of impunity. So this is very unfortunate. All of these actions are very useful on the long term. The biggest problem is that we don't really have much time when the civilian population is getting starved and they are dying of hunger. We don't have time. In terms of long-term and strategy, yes, Israel may pay the price for all of its crimes at one point when the United States of America decides to lift its offer of impunity. And that could change. Politics is politics. You never know what happens down the road. But that's not the issue today. The issue is what can be done today. And with all honesty, if Israel is not going to pay a price, then Israel is not going to stop. Israel is just going to continue because there is no price to be paid. Now, we're talking about today. We're not talking about the future.
Indeed. Finally, Mr. Ramzy, I just wanted to ask you, there's been talk of representatives and delegations and meetings and attempts to rekindle an agreement or a ceasefire agreement, etc. How far, if any, progress has been achieved on this front?
A ceasefire agreement can happen in a minute. When Egypt put forward a solution, a full solution, comprehensive solution, that solution was accepted by all Arab and Islamic countries, and the Europeans accepted it and it could be implemented tomorrow. The problem is will. NG Israel does not have the will. Israel does not see a need to actually stop what it is doing right now. And with all honesty, it is worse than that. Because what we have seen with this right-wing government is that they think that this is the biggest opportunity that they have in order to carry out ethnic cleansing in both Gaza and the West Bank and take over the land, create their Eretz Israel, or at least part of it. And they see that opportunity, and they believe that this is the best time to do it. And on the basis that, well, our reputation is destroyed, we are accused of genocide anyway, let's finish the job and let's get as much as we can, because there cannot be any more damage that can be done to the reputation of Israel. And the only thing that they can discuss is reputation. Why? Because no country is saying we are going to stop selling arms or doing trade with Israel. Israel, and that is what Israel cares about. Israel cares about that kind of punitive measure that would actually affect the livelihood of the Israeli people, the economy, the ability of the army to continue to conduct genocide. This is what Israel cares about. Israel doesn't care about talk, and to them that's all hot air. And what can be done to the reputation of Israel after a year and a half of conducting genocide and ethnic cleansing? The whole world knows what Israel is doing, and Israel has lost a lot, at least in the street, but it has not suffered from any measures that Europe has taken, for example. And,
Right.
and the Israelis care about that. They care about their relationship with Europe. They care about the ability to make money. They care about exporting their products and goods to the whole world, and especially the big markets such as Europe and the USA, of course. And therefore, Israel is not being hit anywhere that is painful to Israel in order for Israel to reconsider. And this is where the catch-22 is. We have ideological fantasies in the head of this right-wing government, and we have a reality on the ground. Israel is able to get away with it.
Yes.
And the amount of ammunition and weapons that it is getting from the United States of America is historical. That is not lacking. So all of the means for Israel to continue doing this is there and available. Now, having said this, we also have to take note on the other side that the vast majority of the Israeli population is totally against the continuation of war.
Yes.
They want what they call hostages back in Israel, and they no longer trust Netanyahu or his government. They believe that they are liars. The latest lie was the accusation of Israel that it was Palestinian terrorists, quote unquote, who ignited the fires around Jerusalem and all over. And then the Israeli public realizes a fact that is a lie. No Palestinian ignited any fire. The fire started by the mistake of Israelis who were having a picnic somewhere, and the government had been lying for the past 3-4 days about the Palestinian terrorist attacks against Israeli trees. So Israel does not enjoy a lot of confidence internally. So this is cause for hope, because if the Israeli public goes out against the war, then Netanyahu may be forced to stop the war for internal purposes.
Indeed.
But he is not under any real pressure from the international front.
Indeed. I'm afraid I've run out of time. I'll have to leave it at that. Mr. Ramzy Khoury, the Jordanian journalist and our guest for the afternoon. Thank you so much, sir, for all your time and your insight.